What's up, everybody? It's your favorite arachnid's favorite nerd, and today we are looking at the Takara Tomy masterpiece Blackarachnia. This is all known to me from Robert Detoff. He's a Beast Wars fan, and he's been getting all of these, so I appreciate him doing so, because I am not. But I have been a fan of most of the figures they've put out, so I'm anxious to take a look at this lady, so to speak. However, in order to do so, we need to first talk about accessories. Accessory-wise, she comes with this gun, and it makes up part of her spider body too, which will show, but we have the copper paint, the gold paint, the texture back here, and then white and red paint is really decoed quite well. And it also will hold this by just sort of sliding it in. She'll hold that in this peg here, or that hole there, there's a peg on the weapon itself. Just slide it in and then kind of wrap her little claws around it and you're in service. And that, of course, you can fold up the wings, kind of reassemble this back piece and store it away in bug mode. It kind of has to slide up underneath and then tab in and just work until it works. Do you know what I mean? So you get two of these things. One of them does not have a string, one of them does. The one without the string has the copper paint and then the Predacon symbol tampoed on, which looks good, and the sculpt is decent. The one with the string, once again, has the Predacon symbol, once again has the copper finish, and then has this string that ties off to this little peg. You can use the peg to plug it into her backside. It's a tight fit, but it needs to be because you can support the weight of the figure on the thread, which is a cool element. The one without the string has two slots there for two tabs on her forearm, and I will do my best to try to line this up with the camera in front of me, or I will cut it and show you what it looks like. And that's what it looks like. The stringed one can also tab in to her arms underneath. She comes with two extra face options, one with sort of the dead eyes. Both have the Black Widow symbol painted on, and both have the gold finish. This one has the green eyes and an open mouth that looks a little strange and bizarre, just expression-wise, and this one is more sort of stoic. You get this, which is some sort of visor, and then these wires, they plug in underneath. There's a little hole, and then you can use one of your pegs here to plug in. But there's only one hole, so to speak, so I'm guessing that this is just a spare. I don't know how that works, but you get this. It's decoed nicely with the copper, and then you have kind of the green translucent inside, so it looks good enough. It'll then slide onto her head, and it's just used with like tension to keep it around. It's tricky to kind of get the right angle though, and I do worry about damaging the paint trying to pull this off. So unless this is a big deal to you, I'd probably avoid this generally, but it does work. You get a display base. It's sculpted well enough, no paint on it, but it's sculpted well enough, looks pretty cool. And these teeth remind me of the other one, so I would imagine that you can use both in concert. Then you have a stand, and you have some pegs and holes, etc. So just pick a spot. You got a ratcheted base there, an additional hinge, and then an additional hinge where it plugs in. Speaking of plugging in, it'll go into the same hole, so to speak, that the string weapon will, and you can have her supported like that. Now you can also use this by lifting up her backpack and plugging it into her backside there, and now you can use the stand in that manner as well. You also get a web. This is made up of 4 pieces. One has to kind of sit in front of the other and then behind one in order to kind of make it assemble. Actually, I guess they all do. One goes in front, one goes in the back, and there's like a series of pegs and they all line up. It's a translucent plastic. It's blue. It's nice enough, I guess. It's sculpted. It has like some texture in the webbing itself. You have this adapter that can peg on, and there's probably a specific way you're supposed to do this. And I've never been good at 50-50, so let's just try it. So we'll tab in here, and we'll tab in here, this little extra piece. Then with your display stand and the peg facing up, you can slide that onto it. And then with the weapon here, you clip this on to this bit there, which is not particularly my favorite way of doing business. I would have preferred if it clipped onto the bot itself and not onto an accessory that had to be tabbed onto the bot. That's just a personal preference thing. It just makes kind of having to have it all plugged in nice and tight for everything. It's just one extra thing that you got to worry about, But it is effective. It is cool. You can also utilize this with the robot mode. Just remove the C-clip that you use to plug into the back of the spider, insert it onto the peg of the stand, and then use this peg to plug into her backside the same way that you use the standard peg. And there you go. Now, I think you're supposed to have the web oriented a specific way, whether, it kind of bends or bows to the front or back. I'm sure that it's intentional. I'm sure there's a rhyme or reason for it. I don't think it necessarily matters for the sake of showing you guys how it works, but feel free to consult your instructions if you need it to be specific. So let's go over alt mode. She has these 8 legs. Unfortunately, they're too thin and kind of the hinges are too weak to really support her weight all that well. It usually ends up failing, and the failure usually happens at the ball peg. I'm going to see if I get them up at, okay, so there you go. I got them up at like a really tight angle, and they'll work a bit better in that regard. So that's a little bit more forgiving. They are painted beautifully. All of the Beast Wars figures that Masterpiece has done, the Takara line, have been painted beautifully. This one's no exception. Textured plastic. The plastic feels better than what we got with Hound. It feels more like what we expect from this company, and this one's no exception. The Black Widow symbol is painted on there in a metallic red. Then we have the eyes that are down here, the copper sort of fangs or whatever they're called. What am I, Ranger Rick? The head can move up and down to a pretty good level. It's got a hinge, and it feels like a ball peg, and then an additional hinge at the neck, so no issues. Down to there, swivel, no, it's just well done. The legs, like I said, are on ball pegs, but this whole piece here can sort of swivel left and right, so it can help you get probably additional poses or whatever you may need. Then we have ball pegs where they connect, and then an additional hinge at the first knuckle, for lack of a better term. Everything else kind of standard. Is relatively clean, for what this thing has to do engineering-wise. I think it's sort of acceptable. The back here is, I think, where it mostly falls apart. It's obvious that you can see the legs and then this bit, but honestly, I think it's forgivable. That may be because I don't have skin in the game. I have to sort of accept that as a possibility. That because I don't have any sort of commitment to this line or anything invested into it, that maybe this doesn't bother me as much as it would bother someone else, but I think that overall it's a pretty decent attempt. I'll tell you what else is decent. Tiger tracks. So let's get her transformed. Take your accessory piece, if it's in, and untab and pull that out. Take this tab that's connected to the part with the logo kind of on it and untab that. That will allow you to bring the legs down. As you do so, make sure to get your knee cap, like your knee armor, up and out of the way. It'll just help not break your stuff. And you can straighten the foot. That doesn't feel good. Let me see if I gotta get this. There's a heel spur in here. Let me see if I gotta get that out first. I probably need a tool. There we go. No, it's not helping. Yikes, that's scary tight. Yeesh. All right, one more. There we go. And a little bit better, but not much. And then there's these armor plates here on the thighs. You just want to collapse them. They'll accordion down, and that'll work on both sides. Then you're going to want to start working on the upper body. Just detach the arms from one another and then fold them up and get them up and out of the way. On the top side, rotate the spider head 180 degrees. These little pincers here, they move also. Then you can bring that down and sit that flat against the body. And then you want to untab the logo from the back here and push the head and chest through. And I'm trying my best to do it. There. Once that comes around, You can accordion the neck down and move the chest down. The chest tabs in to, where is it? Did I spin that? Chest tabs down in here somewhere. Oh no, it's right there. And then you can collapse the neck all the way. Then you can take the crotch piece, flip that down, spin it 180, bring it back up and plug it in to the hips on the back side. Then on the back, just straighten out this piece. It's a hinge here and here. You just push down, pull up, and this will tab in to the back of the neck. I'll clean it up, we'll take a look at it. So let's talk about the figure. The head, we don't have the green eyes on this one either. And the gold or copperish gold face and then the little eyes on the back. I think it's good. I think the face sculpt is good, or at least appropriate. It's a ball peg on a hinge. Using both, you get the head all the way down, all the way up. Swivel, confused dog look, no issues. We do have an ab joint. You can get an ab crunch out of it, but it's a little strange. You mostly get this like teapot movement and obviously the swivel. And I'm let's just check. I can't help it. No, because this is gonna block it, right? It's like if you could open up these little mandibles or pincers or whatever they are in there, if that would allow you to kind of move that joint. That joint's also a little loose on this copy anyway. Not insanely so, but definitely loose. Deco wise, we have the gold paint on the chest. The spider paint is painted on top of the chest. The chest is the metallic gold. It looks good, like it's painted well. And then we have the shoulder. So we have a disc hinge at the shoulder on the exterior that comes into a hinge on the interior of the chest. Using both, you can get the arm pretty much all the way up and down, and the swivel 360. The shoulder armor moves independently, so just be mindful. And then you don't really get a butterfly, but because of the hinge and the thinness of the abdomen, it works fine. Now you have a bicep swivel, so no issues there. Ton of paint. All this paint in here, it's like a copper plus gold on top, and then the green looks fantastic. Double jointed elbow. These things are frustrating to deal with, but you can't not deal with them, right? It's part of the character design. I get it. Double jointed elbow. Full range. You have the metallic green and gold, and the metallic gold is on the joint itself. I love seeing stuff like that. It's a little risky to do because of paint rub and stuff, but I like when people do it. You have a wrist swivel, and then you have these kind of things here that open up. You have a hinge at the first knuckle, for lack of a better term, and then a secondary one at both. So you should be able to get whatever you want out of that within reason. And the articulation is the same on the other side. So for the hips, get some of this out of the way. You can extend this here. This is mainly for transformation, but it might help you get a pose out. So that's something to think about. It's a double hinge system. Think of it in terms of like what SH Figuarts does sometimes. But you get a decent pose to begin with. You can get her up to there, back to there for the full Monty, but it will go off at an angle because of the shape of the pelvis. If you want to kind of circumvent that, then you can pull it out to the side and you'll see, like for a picture or a pose or whatever, it won't bother you in the least. All right, we have a thigh swivel, purple and orange and gold paint on the thigh. We have a double jointed knee with a gold knee. Once again, the engineering being painted is risky, but when done right, it looks fantastic. Then we have the lower legs, which are painted beautifully and kind of have like this effect. I like that all of the Beast Wars stuff, I think, has had some sort of paint effect done to it. This one's no exception, and it's done well. It's like some sort of texture type digital paint applied to the shins, calves, and knee. Then we have an ankle tilt up, down, and then a rocker where the foot plugs in, and then you can adjust the heel as need be as well. So no real issues articulation-wise. It'd have been nice to have more of an ab crunch, but it's also possible that there's some way to get around it that I'm just not seeing. There she is from the back. I think it's as clean as it can be. It's not a super clean character design in the first place, you know what I mean? So there's a little bit of leniency there. Size comparison wise, I don't really know what's appropriate, but there she is next to a Masterpiece Insecticon and a Masterpiece car. So about the same size as an Insecticon, which would fit, I think. Like if you wanted to kind of bring her into an Insecticon setup, I think it would work. And there she is next to a Marvel Legend, so pretty much your standard Marvel Legend size. Final thoughts wise, let's start with the negatives. She is spindly. Now, a good part of that is going to be just the character design, right? It's just kind of the cost of doing business with a character like this. It's part of who she is. It's part of what she looks like. It's just kind of the name of the game. It doesn't change the fact that she's still spindly. And when you don't have those pinned hinges or proper universals or something for those spider legs, it's going to cause some frustrations. I've had legs pop off the ball pegs and all that kind of stuff. Once again, part of that is in the character design. Part of that is in the execution. They are working in concert to kind of not work properly. And not that they don't work properly, I guess that's not fair, but not be as secure as you would hope. I don't think she cleans up quite as well in alt mode as a lot of the other ones do, and I've kind of had mixed feelings as to all of them, to be honest, but there is something about this that feels a little less Masterpiece in that regard. The transformation's a little clumsy as well. I wouldn't think too much of it if it was a third-party piece, but with the Masterpiece stuff, I do kind of expect more. Maybe I'm not being fair in that regard, but it is how I feel. There's plenty of positives though. She's super well articulated, with the one exception of that ab crunch that doesn't quite work. There is a hinge there, but the spider head that sits in front of it gets in the way of it, so it just doesn't quite work. Not the biggest deal in the world though. Most of it is articulated extremely well. It's painted beautifully, and the materials feel better than Hound, but at the same time, when I went to get Shrapnel off the shelf, the Fans Toys Shrapnel, I knocked over Laserbeak, who I had sitting up on Megatron's forearm, and I picked him off the floor. The materials are vastly different that they're using now than what they used to use. That Laserbeak feels night and day from this. But to be fair, this still feels better than the Hound. There's no hardware in it, but I'm not sure there's room for hardware. The bot mode cleans up exceptionally well. But at $140, she does seem a little overpriced for what you ultimately get. And I say that thinking that this is a pretty well done figure, but if this sat closer to $100, maybe 120 tops, and I know you can get it on Amazon Japan and all that kind of stuff, that aside, American retail, which is what I'm most familiar with, it seems a little high in my opinion. But I can still recommend it. I think it's overall a decent thing. I prefer it over the Hound, but I don't think it's anywhere near as impressive as some of the other things that they have done within their Beast Wars line. Hope that helps. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.